All right, what's up, guys? Daniel Clayman here. I've got a new training out for you if you are doing or want to start doing any kind of build to rent development, then this is for you. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 steps to underwriting any build to rent deal, whether you're doing a single family home, a 1,000-unit project, or anything in between. These are 10 steps that are going to massively simplify the process for you so you can think at the same level as professional real estate developers. So quick side note, when I say build to rent, most of the time the industry uses the term build to rent when it comes to single family subdivisions out in the county, single family homes for rent, entire subdivisions. That's what typically everybody's used to hearing build to rent. I personally use the build to rent term for anything that you're going to build and rent out, whether it's single family home subdivisions like this, or what we do mostly in my business, which is infill development, duplexes, quads, entire large developments of duplexes, larger mixed use properties. We're building them and renting them out. So when I say build to rent, I mean properties like these and anything smaller or larger than that as well. So again, I want to make sure that when we're talking about build to rent, you understand that what I'm going to teach you is how to underwrite any deal that you're going to develop and rent out, whether it's a subdivision out in the county somewhere of, you're taking raw land and redeveloping it into single family homes for rent, or you're doing infill development, or even if you're doing mixed use, office, industrial, whatever that may be. Okay? Just want to make that very clear. So really quick, my name is Daniel Clayman. I build real estate. I build software for real estate investors. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here from Russia back when I was 12 years old. I started in real estate after getting laid off from my corporate job back in '08, and have grown a pretty sizable portfolio of multifamily and mixed use assets. And I started off doing gut renovations, historic properties, and after about 7 or 8 years I got sick of doing renovations and switched over to ground up development and have not looked back. And we're vertically integrated with a property management arm as well, and that's something I talk about in other videos. So the build to rent process can seem daunting, right? When you're taking a single family home and you're renovating it, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, I know how big the house is, I know what it's going to sell for when I get done with my renovations. It's easy to make sense of those deals. When you're starting from scratch with development, it's a lot harder to wrap your head around where the values are, how the numbers should work. So that's what I'm going to try to simplify here in this video. So let's go through the process. Step 1, figure out what you're going to build. Rule of thumb is always start at the end. Even if you're staring at a raw piece of dirt, start at the end. What are you going to build on this piece of land? Is it a single family home, duplex, 100-unit apartment building? How big is it going to be? What's the unit mix? Bedrooms, baths, sizes? What are the finishes? This is what I'm going to build. Step number 2. Now that you know what you're going to build, what is it going to be worth? What is the final as-built value of what you're going to build? Very simple, right? Now that you know what you're going to build and its value, how much money is it going to make when it's built and leased out? Now that you know how much money it's going to make, you can determine how much debt that income can support. So now you know on a permanent basis, when the property is built and rented, how much debt it can support. From there, you back out your cost to acquire the land and cost to build. And that's going to tell you your cash required. This is how much it's going to cost to acquire and build. This is how much debt it can support. So this is how much cash I need to do this deal. And now you know income and cash required, then you can start figuring out return metrics, cash and cash return, sweat equity, IRRs, equity multiples, etc., etc., etc. That's it. This is the process. So here's another way to look at this. These are the 10 steps that we go through in any deal that we underwrite. And by the way, when I say underwrite, I just mean underwrite just simply means figure out if the deal works, if the numbers work, what the numbers look like on the deal. So step one, zoning. Look at the existing zoning and say existing zoning allows me to build X. So I'm going to build X. It's going to be this big. This is how many units, unit mix, etc., etc. Step two, now that you know what you're going to build, what's the value when it's built? Step three, you build what's called pro forma income and expenses to determine when this thing is built and leased, this is how much income it's going to have, this is what the expenses will look like. Step four, now that you know the income, you can back into the maximum monthly payment that that income can support. And from that, you can back into how much debt the deal can support. And I'm going to show you a detailed example in a minute and run you through all the numbers. So now you have your max leverage. This is the most amount of money I can borrow against this property. So now you need to figure out what your land acquisition price will be and construction costs. And then you take your total cost. From that, you subtract your max leverage, max amount of debt, to determine the equity required in a deal. How much cash do I or my investors or my partners need to come up with in order to do this deal? And then you need to account for short-term financing because that's going to carry with it expenses. And I'll show you that again in a second. And so step 8, now you can start evaluating your KPIs. Sweat equity, cash and cash return, IRRs. Step 9, if you don't like the way the KPIs look, now you can start adjusting some inputs. And again, I'll show you that in a minute. What specific inputs are we talking about? And then step 10, you need to determine, am I going to go forward with this deal or not? So let's go through a detailed example. And for this specific example, to keep things simple, we're going to use a duplex. But again, what I'm going to show you, this process can apply to a single family home. It can apply to a 1,000-unit development. The same exact principles apply to any scale project. All right, so step 1, zoning, unit mix, size. What am I going to build? What does the current zoning allow you to build? How many units can you build? What is the height limit in the zoning? What are the setback requirements given the current zoning? What is the maximum footprint, floor plate of the building that you can have? You need to look at all of those things. How many units will the building have? How big will these units be? Bedrooms, baths, size. You need to make a decision as to what you're going to build. And I have other videos on our YouTube channel that go deeper into figuring out what the unit mix should be, how big the units should be. That's not the topic for this particular video. The topic for this particular video is underwriting. So we're going to say zoning allows us to build a duplex. 2-unit building, 1 lot. My duplexes are typically over and under. Apartment on the first floor, apartment on the second floor. But you can just as well build side-by-side duplexes, front and back duplexes. Anything is possible, okay? You can build a 3-story duplex where there's an apartment on the first floor, and we've done that before, and then there's another apartment on the second and third floor. You can do all kinds of things. Your market will show you what makes sense to build, and that's a skill you need to develop over time, figuring out what's going to work in your market, what's going to be in demand, what kind of product do your tenants want to live in. So for this example, we're going to assume zoning allows us to build a duplex. It's on 1 lot, unit down, unit up. 2-story stall. Each apartment will be 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. Okay, so very simple 2,000 square foot building. Step number 2, now that we know what we're going to build, we're going to build a 2,000 square foot duplex, 2 apartments, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths each. What is it going to be worth? What is the thing I'm going to build going to appraise for? So, residential product, 4 units and less, trades based on sales comps. Just like single family homes. If it's above 4 units, the valuation will depend on the net operating income that is projected from this property and what's called the market cap rate. So for duplexes, you're going to pull up sales comps. And there's lots of sources online that you can use for sales comps, and you're going to determine what are, if there are newly constructed duplexes in your market that are being built and sold, what are those selling for? And if they're not newly constructed duplexes, maybe you can look at renovated duplexes in the same area. What are they selling for? And determine the after repair as built value of your duplex. So in this case, you're going to look at sales comps for 2,000 square foot duplexes, and you're going to determine that this duplex will be worth $500,000 when it's built. So now step 3, right? This is your as built value. Step 3. Now you know what you're going to build. Unit mix, size, you know what it's going to be worth. Now you build what's called pro forma income and expenses to determine the projected income that this property will generate. What will the thing you build make? How much money is it going to make? Pro forma simply means projections. You're going to project, these are going to be the rents for my 2-bedroom apartments, and these are going to be the operating expenses. So you need to pull up rental comps in your market and make a projection for what these units will rent for when this duplex is built. And then you need to estimate operating expenses. So in our case, we're going to pull up rental comps, and we're going to determine that a newly constructed with nice finishes 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit should rent for $1,800. And then we're going to take an operating expense ratio of 30%, which is roughly where we operate this type of residential product that doesn't have common areas, amenities that need to be cleaned and maintained. For commercial product, we typically, for multifamily product, we use a higher operating expense ratio, closer to 35%, sometimes as high as 40%. But for simple duplexes, and that's another reason why I like building simple duplexes like these, your operating expenses should be fairly low. There's no common area hallways to clean, heat, cool. All the utilities are separated between the tenants. You have an occasional landscaping expense, and that's it. So you're going to take $1,800 times 2, $3,600 a month, and take 30% of that will be your operating expenses. So you take your operating expenses, subtract them from your net, from your operating income to determine your net operating monthly income. In this case, $2,520 a month. And by the way, before we go to step 4, if you have not downloaded this land due diligence checklist from us yet, I highly recommend it. This is going to show you step by step in great detail how to do proper due diligence on any piece of land you put under contract to make sure you're not buying something that's going to have costly expenses to develop or potentially cannot be developed at all. So go to rehabvaluator.com/land, download this checklist. I spend a ton of time on it, a lot of effort, and it's yours, no strings attached, absolutely free. But this has already prevented a lot of people that watch our YouTube videos and are on our email list or use our software from making very costly mistakes when buying land. So rehabvaluator.com/land. All right, so before we go to step 4, let's recap where we are. What are you going to build? You're going to build a duplex, 2,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath units. It's going to be worth $500,000 a month. Not $500,000 a month. It's going to be worth $500,000. And it's going to make in net operating income $2,520 a month. So now here comes step 4, determining what I call max leverage. How much debt will the income from this property support? So the net operating income you generate has to cover the mortgage payment. The net income that you make every month has to cover how much you owe to the bank and then have money left over. So this is why we start with the permanent financing before we ever look at construction funding. Usually you won't be able to borrow more from a bank on construction than what the property will be able to support on a permanent basis, right? So the projected net operating income has to be at least, usually, 1.25 times the projected mortgage payment once the project is built and stabilized. Now, I've seen DCRs out there of 1.2. I've seen some lenders require 1.3 and higher. So for the purposes of this example, we're using 1.25. And what you will find is in low interest rate environments, right? When the interest rates are low, the same payment equals a higher amount of debt before you hit that debt coverage ratio, which means that your leverage goes up. You can borrow more and you need less equity. As interest rates rise, the same dollar amount at a higher interest rate equals a lower debt payment, a lower debt amount. So debt goes down, leverage goes down, and how much cash you need to bring to the deal for the same deal goes up. Equity goes up, debt goes down as rates increase. And I'll show you a numeric example of this in a minute so you can understand this better, but that's why you'll also see in higher interest rate environments more creative equity structures where you have preferred equity, gap funding, more syndications taking place, etc., etc. So $2,520 is the net operating income. $2,520 has to be 1.25 times the mortgage payment, the maximum mortgage payment every month. That means mortgage payment cannot be more than $2,016 per month. So we're going to assume 6.5% interest rate and 25-year amortization on the permanent loan. So from here, having these assumptions and this information, how can we figure out the maximum debt amount? Well, it's very simple. Build a spreadsheet just like this. You can do this using a financial calculator, but you can also just do this in Excel or Google Sheets, and I'm giving you the formula, right? Build something that looks like this. The formula for the payment is right here. And then you're going to, in the blue cell, input the debt amount until you reach a payment of $2,016. Anybody can do this in Excel, right? The maximum debt amount that will result in a payment no more than $2,016 per month is $298,600. So let's recap where we are. You're going to build a duplex, 2,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths each. It's going to be worth $500,000. It's going to make $2,520 a month. The maximum that you can borrow on a permanent basis against this deal is $298,600 with a monthly payment of $2,016 a month. So now we need to figure out what is the land going to cost to acquire and what is this duplex going to cost to build. Once we know that, we have our total cost, we have our max leverage, and we can figure out how much cash we need to bring to the deal. Our cash, our partner's cash, investors, whatever. So what will it cost to acquire land and build a project? You may already be in possession of land, or maybe you're looking at a listing. You need to figure out what you're going to pay for that land, and you need to ballpark construction costs. So for the purpose of this example, and again, I have other videos on our YouTube channel that show you how to back into the maximum cost of land that I suggest you watch. They're very easy to find on our YouTube channel. But for the purpose of this analysis, we're going to assume that you're looking at a listing where the lot for sale is $70,000. So you know your acquisition price. Construction costs for a duplex, we're going to ballpark around $140 a foot. That's for soft costs and hard costs. This is roughly what it now costs me to build a duplex with really nice finishes, hardy plank siding, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors, nice energy efficient windows. And we are in a market that's kind of middle of the road for America. So I think my costs are representative of probably most of the country, not including outliers like New York, LA, or places where things are cheaper like in Texas. So we're going to assume $140 a square foot to build. Now, if you're not sure how the ballpark construction costs, pick up the phone and call people in your local market that are building right now. General contractors, builders, other developers. Hey, I'm looking to build, by residential building code, I'm looking to build a duplex. What are you paying per foot to build this? Hey, I'm looking to build a 50-unit apartment building on a concrete podium with parking underneath. Hey, what does this roughly cost $1 per foot to build these days? And just start calling people. It's not rocket science if you learn some basic skills like that. They're kind of lost on us these days, like picking up the phone and just talking to people. So I'm going to assume $140 a foot to build this 2,000 square foot duplex, which means my construction costs between soft costs, all my architectural, engineering, permitting, and my hard costs, $280,000. So my total for acquisition and construction, $350,000. So let's recap where we are. My total costs are $350,000. The maximum leverage is $298,600, which means that I need $51,400 in cash to do this deal, assuming that my bank will also give me the same amount of construction funding as they will on a permanent basis. So max leverage on a permanent basis when we do these deals equals max leverage for construction. That's why we start with the end in mind, and once we know how much debt the deal can support on a permanent basis, that's how much we try to get for construction. And the preferred lending product that we typically get from our lenders gives us both construction financing that then automatically rolls over into permanent financing. So we don't have to do a refi. I try to lock in my permanent rate when I close on a construction loan. Not every bank will want to do that these days, but that's how we do deals. And so now when I'm closing the construction loan, I'm effectively closing on my permanent loan as well. And this is why, again, we start with permanent financing, because a lender that knows what they're doing won't give you more on a short-term construction basis than the deal can handle on a permanent basis. So this is where we are. We now know what we're going to build, how much it's going to be worth, how much money it's going to make, what the max leverage is. We know our costs. We know how much cash the deal will require. And now we can figure out the cash on cash return and sweat equity. Now, there's lots of other metrics in build-to-rent development. But the two things I look at first and foremost to make sure the deal is a go or no-go are these two. How much cash is required for this deal? What return is this cash going to earn? And then how much sweat equity, how much wealth on my balance sheet am I creating by doing this deal? So here are the numbers. Monthly income minus mortgage payment times 12 divided by cash required is almost a 12% cash on cash return. And it's going to cost me $350,000 to acquire and build something that's going to be worth then $500,000. So I'm creating roughly $150,000 in new wealth on my balance sheet, and it's a 30% sweat equity. So if you're using like a 70% ARV calculation, this hits it exactly. Now, this analysis ignores the costs of short-term financing. So these numbers are going to be not quite as good as this once you take into account closing costs on the construction loan, monthly interest payments, points you have to pay. But still, these are the numbers. 12% cash on cash, 30% sweat equity. So what do you think? Nah? Deal? No deal? Would you do this deal? I can tell you right now, I would do this deal in a heartbeat. If I can earn anything north of 10% cash on cash return right now, year one, when I build something and create 30% sweat equity, I would do this deal in a heartbeat. This is how you build wealth. Now, I will say, I'll give you this disclaimer, right? I'm showing you real numbers here. This is real estate development. It requires you to put in cash. You are essentially a capital allocator right now, whether it's your cash or your investor's cash. This isn't like get rich quick overnight in crypto and buy 50 Lambos tomorrow type of business, right? You're used to seeing on YouTube. It's all bullshit. No, this is a real business that requires you to allocate some cash, whether it's your cash or your investors or your partner's cash, and you're going to earn a fair to possibly good rate of return on that cash. It's not a get rich quick business at all. You're not going to get rich quick doing this, but you will get wealthy over time so that, one day you wake up and you can afford yourself a Lambo or to party on the yacht, but by that point you probably won't give a shit, right? There's a famous rap lyric by Jay-Z that says, by the time you can afford the car doesn't matter. I'm misquoting the lyric, but you understand what I'm saying. By the time you can afford it, the car ain't important. That's their lyric. All right? So get rich slow. But look, if these numbers aren't good enough for you, if you say 11.8% cash and cash return is not good enough for me, which I think you'd be wrong, and I'll show you why in a second, but there are levers you can press here to improve these numbers. Go renegotiate your land. Get land at $50,000. Your cash required goes down to $31,000, and your cash on cash jumps up to 19%. Very simple lever you can press. Get better at finding land cheaper. And I'll link below this to a video we have specifically on finding land, and I'll link to another video about how you can essentially get land for free. But you can also go and ask for 30-year amortization on your loan to then be able to borrow even more money rather than 25-year amortization. Look what happens to your leverage when you go on the same rate from 25-year amortization to 30-year amortization. You increase your leverage by almost $20,000. And remember, cash on cash and cash flow is just one of 4 components of total return when you hold these properties over the long term. You also get appreciation, you get depreciation, and we use depreciation very intelligently. We cost segregate these projects, take advantage of accelerated depreciation, bonus depreciation when we can, and then you get amortization. Over time, your mortgage gets paid down and you build wealth that way as well. So if my starting point on these deals is 10%, 12% cash and cash, heck, even if it's 7 or 8% cash and cash return, I'll do these deals because over time, my total rate of return goes into the high teens, low 20s. Almost always. All right? And then, again, over time, if you want to be the Lambo driving douchebag, you can. Okay? So, one other thing to show you. When you learn this business, and if you can, right now the rates aren't great. You're going to have to borrow at 6.5%, 7% as of now when I'm recording this video. But if you can make the deal work at these interest rates, when the rates drop, you can refinance and pull out a phenomenal percentage of your cash into the deal, maybe all of it. Even if the rates don't drop over time, you can refinance and get your cash out. But look what happens to your leverage when the rate goes down to 4% at 25-year AM. Your leverage goes up to $382,000. So again, if rates ever do drop, this business is going to get insanely profitable, but also any property that you currently hold, it's going to be a refi bonanza. And even if rates don't drop and they stay stable because of how much equity you're building from appreciation and amortization, even if rates don't change, you'll be able to pull money out. So hopefully what I showed you so far makes sense. But now stick around and I'm going to show you how to automate this process. What I showed you just now is going to take you 25-30 minutes, but I'm going to show you how to do the same thing that the same process, 10-step process that I just demonstrated for you, how to do this in 3 to 5 minutes. And also I'll show you how to make funding easier and how we go out and obtain literally tens of millions of dollars of loans from local banks. So keep watching. So everything I just showed you how to do, you can do in spreadsheets, you can do it on paper, you can do it through doing some manual research. But I created a tool a long time ago and I've been perfecting it and reinvesting a lot of money into it ever since, called Rehab Valuator. And with this tool, it's been a game changer for my business and for literally tens of thousands of paying clients at this point. And it has streamlined our development business from doing deal analysis, pulling up comps, figuring out as-built values, building construction budgets, doing full deal financial feasibility, raising funding, and much more. So I'm going to show you really quick how to do this, and we're going to run through the same duplex example in the software, and I'm going to show you how you can shave the timeline to do this type of underwriting from 30 minutes to 5, okay? Okay, so we're inside the software now. Let's run through a duplex example. I'm going to use one of my vacant lots as a guinea pig here that I already own. And so I can immediately, for for my vacant lot, I can pull up tax information, last sale amount, zoning, right? Very, very important, right? Inside the software, I can pull up what it's zoned, how big the lot is. I can pull up Google Street View. This Street View actually isn't completely accurate because this is a 6-unit building that I built. This is a duplex that I renovated, and the buildable lot is actually right here to the right of the duplex. But let's save this, and now what's our step one? What are you going to build? Step one in doing any kind of build-to-rent deal underwriting is what are we going to build? And we're going to say we're going to build a 2,000 square foot duplex. And so one of the things I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to put year built. So there used to be a structure here. So I'm going to change this to year built 2025, and I'm going to put in 2,000 square feet as the new size of the duplex we're going to build. 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 0 4 full baths, 0 half baths. Okay, so we're going to build a duplex, 2,000 square feet, 2 bedroom, 2 bath units, 1,000 square feet each. So the first thing we need to do is decide what we're going to build. Step 2 is what is it going to be worth? And so here I'm going into the rent exit strategy, and I'm going to click calculate for my as-built value. Now, duplexes, triplexes, even quads trade on sales comps, and larger multifamily buildings trade based on net operating income and cap rates. So in here, I'm going to click sales comps. And our software is going to pull up comparable sales, and we can do this anywhere in the country for any property. We're going to pull up comparable sales. And I've got ability here to select new construction comps, or if I'm looking at a rehab, I can go to the rehab and I can pull up some older properties as comparable sales. And so one of the things we're going to notice is in this neighborhood, this is an old historic neighborhood, there's not a lot of duplexes being built and sold. You can see here when I look at apartment or commercial, most of what's being built and sold here is single family homes. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, are there any renovated duplexes that are being sold? Here we go. Here are my renovated duplexes that have sold recently. I'm going to click select all of them, and I'm going to get rid of the lowest one because I know below $200 a foot, it's not a fully renovated property. So that leaves me with 4 comparable sales of 4 bedroom duplexes. Let's get rid of this one also because this is only 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. So now we're going to get rid of these 2 comps. I'm down to 3 comparable sales of 4 bedroom duplexes, roughly the same size. And so you can see here, the average resale value of these duplexes is $265 per foot, which puts my as-built value at $530,000. So I'm going to do 2 things here. Include in presentation because this will go out to my lenders, and I'll show you that in a minute. And I'm going to click use ABV, and we're going to place it in here. So now this is my as-built value. So now I know what it's going to be worth. Next step is how much money is it going to make? So I'm going to go and I'm going to fill out my pro forma. I'm going to say 2 units, 2 bedrooms each, 1,000 square feet each. So now, what are they going to rent for? I can go online and I can pull up Zillow and I can try to do market research, or I can simply hit comps. And we will pull up, again, nationwide, comparable rental comps for you. And so what I want to do here is I've got really dynamic filtering ability, and so I'm going to narrow down to 2 baths. So now I'm only looking at 2 bedroom, 2 bath comps. I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to get rid of the one that does not have square feet available. And so I can see here the average dollar per foot of these rentals, 2 bedroom, 2 bath rentals, is $1.85 a foot. So again, I'm going to click include in presentation, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to say $1.85 a foot, which means they're going to rent out for $1,850 per unit. And then I'm going to click update. And so now I need operating expenses. Now I know what rents are going to be generated, and now I need to fill in operating expenses. So we're going to put an 8% management fee. Let's put in $80 a month for insurance, $40 for landscaping. Let's put in $125 a month for repairs and maintenance, and then we'll put another $125 into reserves. And then my property taxes are going to run about $500 a month here, based on what I think the assessed value is going to be. All my utilities are sub-metered here, or billed back to tenants, so because it's a duplex. So these are my operating expenses. So what do we know now? We know what we're going to build. We know what it's going to be worth. We know how much money it's going to make. So then the next thing we need to do is, how much debt on a permanent basis can this deal support? So here we're going to say, yes, there will be permanent financing. And we're going to assume a rate of 6.5%, 25-year amortization. And so the goal is to hit 1.25 debt coverage. What percent of value can I borrow? Can I borrow 60% of value? No, that puts me at 118. Can I borrow 55% of value? That's actually too low. Now I'm at 129 debt coverage ratio. So what about 57%? 56.5. There we go. That gets me there. So I can see that this deal can support right around $300,000 in permanent debt. This is one of the most important steps you can make, especially when you're figuring out how much cash you're going to need for the deal and what to approach the bank with. Because if you go out to your lender and say, I want to borrow $400,000 for this deal, you're going to look like a fool, because they're going to run this exact kind of analysis. How much debt on a permanent basis can this duplex support before they ever look at what to lend you on a short-term basis? So now we can see, there we go, $300,000 is what this deal can support, assuming 6.5% rate, 25-year amortization, to hit a 125 debt coverage. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my short-term financing and say my short-term loan is also going to be based on value, and it's going to be the same 56.5% of value. So that my short-term loan now equals my permanent loan. And then what's left to do? What am I going to pay for the land? We're going to assume that this piece of land is for sale for $70,000. And then what is it going to cost me to build? We're going to click on construction budget. And very simply, we can just say it's going to cost me $140 a foot to build, including soft costs and hard costs. This is right in line with what we're paying to build these things, and we're in a kind of a middle tier market, not too high, not too low, kind of Goldilocks. So for a duplex that's built by residential code, this is a pretty safe assumption. $140 a foot to build something with nice finishes, granite quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors. But now, this is what I do when we do kind of a preliminary underwriting. I can go in here and I can build a detailed budget and itemize everything. Or I can even, in Rehab Valuator Premium, preload one of our duplex new construction cost templates that has a full scope of work and costs pre-populated. I simply need to go in here and add some takeoffs on this duplex to finish building out my budget. So I can go here, and you can see as I'm entering these measurements, my budget figure here increases. All right, so I can finish filling this out, and you can see my budget figure is now approaching right around $280,000, etc., etc. But for now, let's just say lump sum, $280,000 to build. So that's it. My analysis portion is done. I'm going to show you funding and how we get funding in a second, but my analysis portion is done. What do we know? $70,000 to buy the land, $280,000 to build. My construction loan will be just under $300,000. My permanent loan will be the same, just under $300,000. I'm going to need $70,000. And actually, the only other thing we need to do is modify timeline. It's going to take me 6 months to build. So I'm going to need $76,000 to build this in cash. And then it's going to generate $510 a month in cash flow for an 8% cash on cash return. At 8%, I would do this deal all day long. But if I want to generate a higher cash on cash return and need less money, I'm going to go and I'm going to negotiate my land down to, let's say, $50,000. And I can press that lever. Now my cash on cash return goes up to 11%. What else can I do here? I can go out to my lender and I can ask my lender for 30-year amortization and see if they'll give it to me. Look, that puts my cash on cash return at almost 14%. Or alternatively, because now I'm at 1.34 debt coverage, I can increase my leverage so that I need even less than $55,000 in cash for the deal. You see how powerful this is? But let's go back to 25-year AM. And now let me show you how we secure funding for this deal. So when we go out to lenders, they want to know a couple of things, especially if we're dealing with new lenders, but even if it's lenders that we're dealing with on repeat. And typically these kinds of deals we finance with local community banks. We get a construction loan that then rolls over into permanent financing. So there's no actual refi that takes place. Construction loan, it's interest only for a period of 12 months or 18 months. And then once the building is built, units are leased, the loan rolls over into what's called a mini perm, which then becomes amortizing fixed rate financing. On the construction side, it may be floating rate or it may be a fixed rate. Also, it really depends on your lender. But when we go out to the banks and when our clients go out and talk to their banks, the bank wants to know, am I dealing with somebody that fundamentally understands this business? Am I dealing with somebody that has done their due diligence and properly conducted underwriting on this deal? Am I dealing with somebody that knows their market, understands comps, understands values, understands rental comps, understands how to build the right product for that market? And then am I going to, as a lender, lose my capital? What is my risk? What is going to be my return on the money that I lend? And anytime you go out to your lender, there's all of this information that they want to know. And if you simply call them and say, hey, I'm looking to get this deal funded, they're going to start asking you all of these questions and you're going to piecemeal start having to give them information. Or you could do this. You go, you click on reports in the software and you click on construction and perm loan funding presentation. And we're going to add to this comparable sales and comparable rentals. And we're going to click generate. And I've already filled in some information for you and uploaded a couple of pictures to save us time. But here's what we send to our lender every time we need a deal finance and what our clients do as well. Click Get Unique Link and the software generates a unique web page for your funding proposal. And so this is what your lender sees. First of all, this is an executive summary. Just a little bit about the deal and a little bit about our company, right? New construction project in the heart of a rapidly growing area, blah, blah, blah. Our company has developed over $100 million in real estate in Richmond, which is a true story at this point. And then here's the address. And here is, you can upload a rendering from some drawings, or simply, if you don't even have plans yet, upload a picture of a comparable project. It doesn't even have to be in your neighborhood, but something that serves as the inspiration for this project. All right, and then here's the map, and they can zoom in so they can see exactly where this is in the neighborhood. They can see what's around it. They can understand the neighborhood better in the market. And then here is my pro forma, my stabilized income and expenses. Here's my rental income. Here are my projected expenses. My expenses altogether are 32% of operating income. So again, when you send something to your lender where you're projecting that your operating expenses are going to be 12%, they're immediately going to know you have no idea what you're doing. And I've seen this before, right? If you send something to your lender where your pro forma is completely out of whack, it's going to be immediately a red flag. So make sure you're doing this correctly. And then here's my short-term and permanent loan summary. Here's what I'm showing my lender. And again, these are all the questions that my lender would have to figure out on their own or ask me questions. I'm giving them everything they need to understand this deal. Here's the projected as-built value. This is what I'm paying for land. Here are my projected construction costs. Here's what I'm looking to finance. Here's the projected net operating income. Here's how long I need the money for. And then this is the permanent loan. Now I need to go back and adjust my numbers because here we're not doing a full refi, just a rollover into permanent financing. So I need to go back and tweak my numbers just a little bit to get this right. So let's go do that now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my short-term financing. I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to make interest payments during construction because most lenders will typically require it. And I'm actually going to fix my short-term interest rate here to 7%. And so now I can see cash out at refi is 0, profit at refi is 0, which means that my short-term loan perfectly matches my permanent loan. Beautiful. So now let's go back to our presentation. And so again, I can generate this in just a couple of minutes, but now my lender knows that I understand this business. Here's the permanent loan, and it's going to cover the debt at 1.25, assuming 6.5% rate and 25-year amortization. And here's some pictures of a similar duplex built in the neighborhood. In my case, this is something that I've built, but again, if you've never built anything before, you can use pictures from a project that somebody else has built and say, my project will look similar to this project, and just disclose the fact that you didn't build it. Here we go, right? So, comparable sales report. Here are my comps. Here's how I'm coming up with value, $265 a foot. Here are my rental comps. And again, I can zoom in, I can drive around the neighborhood, but here are my rental comps. So I'm backing up all of my projections with cold, hard data from my lenders. And then here's some additional pictures of what this will look like when it's built. We want to make this visual for our lender. We want them to be able to touch it, to be able to feel it. And again, I'm using pictures from my project here, but you can use pictures from another project in the neighborhood or even in another neighborhood and say, what we're going to build is going to look like this. And that's it. I can email this link to my lender, to my banker. I can print this off as a PDF and bring it to a meeting. But this is incredibly effective in getting funding. All right. And then of course, inside the software, there is an entire project management suite here that allows me to build full detailed budgets. I can store my bids here. I can build Gantt charts with project schedules, right? There's a full scheduling functionality here. There's an accounting system where I can easily keep track of my ongoing costs and be able in real time to see budget versus actual. And then there's even the ability here to generate one-click lender draw requests with the software as well. And we have detailed training on this and detailed support, very responsive support on these topics as well. But I want to keep the focus here on underwriting these deals. And so hopefully this has shown you how to underwrite a build-to-rent deal start to finish, here using a duplex as an example. But you can apply the same exact principles to a 1,000-unit apartment building. It works the same exact way. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's very easy to do so. Hit subscribe, leave me a comment, leave me your questions. I'm pretty good at responding to almost everybody unless you just type in some nonsense. So leave me your questions, your thoughts. I'll do my best to answer you. Obviously share this if you're able, if you think this will help anybody that you know. And then, you know, on our YouTube channel, there is a wealth of real estate training, and especially lately the focus has been on real estate development, everything from finding deals to underwriting deals to full development process cycle, and much more. And financing, we talk about that a lot, and how to get money. So again, make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out the rest of our videos. And then again, the software I used in this presentation is called Rehab Valuator Premium. We give you property, seller data, sales comps, rental comps, full-scale project management suite, full ability to analyze deals start to finish. The idea has always been to build something very simple that newbies can use, but this software is used by professional real estate developers that are doing 100+ unit projects as well. And you can, again, you can create full lender presentations and much more. So you can take it for a test drive for a full 2 weeks. It's just $1 if you go to rehabvaluator.com/trial, and we're going to take great care of you. We've got phenomenal reputation online. We pride ourselves on giving people amazing customer support and making sure that you're in good hands. So rehabvaluator.com/trial. Take the software for a test drive. You won't regret it. All right, we'll see you in the next one. These things just keep going. Just keep going. We have hundreds of them. Okay, we'll see you later.